I mean, this was an older couple, totally innocent, that were just butchered to death by this guy.
In my opinion, I think this was one of the worst ones I've ever seen. I've seen quite a bit, more than my share, but this one by far was the worst. It was about 9:23 at night on May 13th, 1987. When I was going down the street, I saw a body laying there, waving their arm, laying on their back, waving their arm. I tried to talk to her, and I remember putting my hand behind her head and kind of raising it off the ground a little bit to see if I could make eye contact with her. She was still conscious, and what I remember is I was asking her, "Who did this to you?" And when she responded, she was trying to talk, but nothing but blood and air was coming out of her throat. And at that time, the side of her mouth just fell open because she had been cut from here to here. So we went in and checked, and here this was Mr. Lehman laying there. He was already deceased, and he had been cut, and his throat was slashed also.
It was a horrible homicide. These people were stabbed repeatedly, and both of them had their throats cut. The mother, Juanita, literally crawled across the driveway, down the driveway, trying to get help. And I mean, it really was bad.
I know initially there was no sign of breaking anything else like that, but basically there was nothing to go on until almost 10 years later, I get a phone call from a person who identified himself as Gary Hughbanks' father, saying, "Are you familiar with a unsolved double homicide in Springfield Township?" I said, "I am very familiar with it because I've met with the police on it several times." He goes, "Well, I know who did it. He told me all about it, and I think I've got the murder weapon."
His brother, who he had talked to, had actually recovered a knife that Gary Hughbanks tried to ditch.
I don't know how he got to know me or how he even got my name, but he said, "I only meet with you. I'll meet with you at a remote location, and you've got to come unarmed. But if you do all of that, I will tell you what I know, and I'll turn over the weapon to you." And I'm thinking, this doesn't sound good. I mean, it's really not in my job description to meet strangers in an open field about an unsolved murder. But the stakes were so high to be able to solve this thing, I said, sure. And we met, it was like soccer fields or ball fields down by Coney Island. And John Jay actually was set up in woods that had a clear vantage point of this field I was supposed to meet this man in with a sniper rifle. And John was ready and prepared to take this guy out if he tried to take me out. But everything went fine. He walked up, he gave me a paper bag with a knife in it, and on the basis of that, we were able to go forward on the case.
We found out he had gone to Tucson, Arizona. We went to Tucson to arrest him and get him to make incriminating statements.
He was so high, they couldn't do it. We figured, well, it would have been great to get a confession, but we got a good case anyway.
I flew home, and the next day I was in my car and I got a phone call from the detective in Tucson, and he said, "Are you sitting down? Hughbanks just confessed to both murders to us."
He saw Mr. and Mrs. Lehman leave the residence, and he decided, he was walking past and he decided he was going to burglarize their house. So he goes in and he's in the process of burglarizing their house, and they came home.
He just didn't want witnesses. I mean, he just didn't want anybody sending him to jail. It's pretty incredibly selfish, you know, to be willing to murder somebody so you don't get caught. And that's all it was.
And he said, the devil's got a place in hell for me when I end up going there.
I mean, it was a horrible crime, and it was, we caught a couple breaks and we were able to bring justice to the rest of the family.